Hello everyone, today's video is a very special one because I will be sharing with you my birth story. Someone told me that the memory you have when giving birth will stay for as long as you live. And almost 2 years after the birth of my baby, I can say that I still remember that day clearly. But just in case my memory fails me, I have had this sketch completed not long after giving birth. And today, I'm finally taking it out. So while you watch me paint these drawings, let me start the story. I would say that I had a pretty smooth pregnancy throughout the 3 trimesters. Although in the beginning, I had some blood surrounding the embryo inside my uterus, and also had a very bad morning sickness, which was more like an all-day sickness. It wasn't anything too serious. There was just one thing that I often feel worried about, which is the amount of my amniotic fluid. Ever since kid, I wasn't one to drink lots of water, and I know just how much that will affect my amniotic fluid, so I tried my best to drink more than 2 liters a day. But despite my effort, true enough, on the 36 weeks during the weekly checkup, my doctor informed me that the amniotic fluid is starting to be low now, and I can try to drink more water, but at this stage, it may not help that much. And so I went back home and drank water religiously that week, and the same result was seen on the 37 weeks checkup. But everything was still fine according to the doctor. So come the 38 weeks checkup, and my doctor was especially serious that day. I remember asking, "Is everything okay?" And he told me to let him focus for a while. In the ultrasound screen, it was very hard to see our baby. The doctor told us that my amniotic fluid is very low now, and he would suggest us to give birth within the next 2 days. The doctor knows my plans of giving birth naturally and suggested that I get induced so I can still experience the natural birth. I went home that day with lots of thoughts on my mind. I wanted my baby to decide when she would come out, but on the other hand, I was worried something bad may happen to her inside. After a long discussion with my husband, we finally decided to get induced the next day. The rest of the day, I was busy doing whatever exercises that people said can induce labor naturally, but, well, it's a fail. I wasn't able to sleep that night. The next day, my husband and I reached the hospital at 7 a.m. It feels like I'm still dreaming. I wasn't overly excited, but rather nervous instead. Everything feels so uncertain as I don't know what to expect. We entered the hospital, and while my husband went to settle the admission process, the nurse led me to the observation room to change my clothes. It was during COVID at that time, so after changing my clothes, the nurse had to swab me to test for COVID. Not long afterwards, the nurse attached the vital monitor on me and asked if I can feel any contractions because she can see it in the monitor. But I didn't feel any. She then proceeded to check if my cervix is dilated, and it was so painful I started to feel cramps. She told me that I was just 1 centimeter dilated, and baby's position was still quite high. She then continued to insert the medicine to induce my labor. Soon after, I started to bleed a little down there. It was around 8 a.m. after the whole procedure, and then I had my breakfast. Now that I think back, that's the only meal I had that day. The nurse asked me to walk around to speed up the labor process, and I did. Around noon, the nurse checked that I was 2 centimeters dilated. I was a bit discouraged. I know that the labor process can be long and sometimes may take days. So I started to do all the exercise I learned to speed up the labor. By 3 p.m., I was 3 centimeters dilated. At this stage, I was still feeling pretty fine. I had cramp, but it was similar to my period cramp, so I was able to deal with it. The doctor came not long after and decided to burst my amniotic fluid to speed up the progress. I wasn't prepared for that, and let me tell you, that was the most painful thing I have ever experienced. And I think it kind of left me feeling somewhat traumatized. After bursting my amniotic fluid, the doctor also gave me another induction medicine through IV. It wasn't long before the medicine took effect, and I started to feel stronger and painful contractions. It was getting unbearable for me at one point. I have heard that getting induced will cause the contractions to be more painful and stronger because the body didn't have the time to slowly adjust. The nurse came in a few times to check on me and asked if I want to get an epidural. I was a little stubborn and rejected it. I tried to remember all the breathing techniques I learned and trying to hypnotize myself to think I can do it. But I was in so much pain that my body was shaking uncontrollably. I didn't even have the energy to talk. And I remember my husband tried to cheer me up and give me strength. But at this rate, all I can think about is how many more hours do I need to wait until I'm fully dilated? What if I have to wait for another 10 hours or more? The thoughts left me in fear. And again, the nurse reminded me that it will take 1 to 2 hours for the anesthetic doctor to come, and once I'm 7 centimeters dilated, I'm not allowed to get the epidural. So I gave in at the end and asked for the epidural. At almost 6 p.m., the anesthetic doctor came and administered the epidural. The doctor said it will hurt and asked me not to move. But honestly, I didn't feel anything at all. I was finally able to breathe easily after half an hour. And the nurse checked for me and found I was 7 centimeters dilated. It was surprisingly a quick process after that, as I was fully dilated the next hour, although baby was not low enough. I had to practice pushing while waiting for the doctor to come, and by the time the doctor reached, my baby was low enough and we began to push. However, the doctor checked that baby's head was not in the center. After few pushes without any result, the doctor suggested for vacuum delivery as not to let the baby stay in the birth canal for too long and cause stress to her. I wasn't prepared for this again. During my pregnancy, I did a lot of research about labor and postpartum care, what is the pros and cons of and what to expect on natural birth versus cesarean, breathing techniques during labor, the epidural effect, birthing positions and other things, but one thing I never researched about is vacuum delivery. But at that time, when a lot of things were going on and when life is at stake, we simply follow what the doctor suggested. And so, after 14 hours of labor, our daughter was born. The nurse cleaned her up and did a quick check. I was thrilled to hear her cries for the first time. After the doctor finished stitching me up, I had the first skin-to-skin time with my baby and also breastfeeding her. So that's my birth story. Overall, I was happy and grateful that I had a pretty smooth pregnancy and my baby was born healthy. Although there are some regrets, like what if I asked for second opinion before getting the induction, or what if the vacuum delivery is what causing my baby to have prolonged jaundice, or like am I being selfish for trying so hard to avoid cesarean, and all those doubts and what if. But I'm learning to give myself some grace and remind myself that I can always try to be prepared, but life is full of surprises, so it is fine to be caught off guard sometimes. So I think that's all for today's video. Also, on another note, I wonder how many of you watching are also a mother or parents. I would love to hear your stories as well, and maybe we can build another community here. Yeah, so I'll not talk any longer. If you managed to watch this till the end, thank you so much, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in my next video. Bye.